Ladies and gentlemen, this RedGamingTed.com video, by popular request, I am going to be showing you guys more about how virtual machines work and cloud-based networks. Of course, this is primarily alluding to the Xbox One, which of course is going to heavily utilize the cloud features. Right now, I am logged in to Windows Azure. I can only apologize for the fact that the screen is a little bit squished. I've had to cut some stuff off because it's showing account names and so on, and obviously I don't want to show you guys some stuff for privacy reasons and so on. So what is Windows Azure? Well, I'm going to open up another window just for a moment to better illustrate this. This is basically a cloud-based distribution, and it also has computational services, virtual machines, mobile services, cloud service, data management, and a lot more besides. In fact, I can click on full calculator for this and we can show you more. So I'm going to be showing you guys how virtual machines actually are set up and operate, and I'm also going to be explaining how they work, and I'm also going to be telling you guys a little bit more about this whole process as well. Now, bear in mind, this is going to be a brief overview. It's certainly going to tell you the basics, and it's going to give you the basic premise for what Windows Azure is and just how Microsoft are powering the Xbox One. So let's talk briefly about this. Now, we know that Microsoft's Xbox One, in terms of GPU power, is less than the PlayStation 4. By the way, guys, if you can hear some background noise, it would actually be my fan. I can only apologize. I am trying to clean. I will try to clean it afterwards in terms of audio quality, but if I don't have it on, I will literally die of dehydration. It is really, really hot in the UK today, and it also has absolutely no breeze. So it was kind of like I had to do it. Sorry. Anyway, as I was saying, the purpose of Windows Azure and cloud computing is numerous. One, it allows cloud storage. We'll go into that in a moment. And the second is cloud computational power. The purpose behind this, of course, is to give the Xbox One more power. I'm just going to show you guys that, yes, the image is not frozen. Show you guys that basically the actual system has a lot more power behind it over the cloud. Now, of course, that means you do need an active internet connection, which can have its own problems. In other words, let's say your game requires you to have an internet connection for that particular title, and your internet falls over for whatever reason. In other words, you will be unable to either utilize the power of the cloud, or you will be unable to access the full abilities of the games, or the game may not even load at all. So what exactly is cloud computing in terms of a machine? Well, I'm going to click on a virtual machine. I'm going to use the pricing calculator because I think it's a really good, real simple way to use sliders, and then we can use the actual software in a moment. I'm going to also show you guys how it works on a PC. So I'm also going to get under the bonnet, if you will, and use an application in a few minutes called VirtualBox. And VirtualBox allows you to set up a VM, which is very similar to what's going on here. Now, a virtual machine is think of it as a computer within a computer. So the basic premise is that you can choose the specifications. For example, I'm just going to click on one here, and you can see that that would cost me $15 for a month use. Now, you can see what the GPU power is right there. 768 megabytes of RAM are mine, as well as 1 gigahertz of CPU speed. And you can actually just mouse over that as well. So you can, by the way, do this yourself. Go to windowsazure.com. It's, of course, free to look at. You can also sign up for a free trial if you're that way inclined. Now, the basic premise is that the machines, rather, that are being utilized by Microsoft, there are several providers. Microsoft, Rackspace, and Amazon are probably about the most well-known and biggest. However, there are others, such as Google, that are now starting to make strides in towards this market. So they have a ridiculously powerful systems. We're talking, 16, 32-core CPUs, multiple CPU configurations, obviously, and we're talking massive amounts of memory. We're not talking, 16 or 32 gigs. We're talking, a couple hundred gigs of RAM. So let's assume, for example, that we didn't want to go extra small, which is obviously the the lowest common denominator. It's the cheapest, and it's good for very basic websites and that type of thing. Very good for testing purposes. Unfortunately for Windows-based machines, because the operating system itself chews up a lot of RAM, I've actually set one of these up for work purposes that I'm not going to let you guys see because it's private. But I actually set one up, and it takes about 600 megabytes of RAM for a 2012 server off the bat. So you're left with very little, especially when you start installing other services. However, as you start going up the specifications, you can see that there are more. It becomes more expensive for one. You can see that right there. But also simultaneously, the specifications are bigger. So, for example, right there, 3.5 gigs of RAM, 7 gigs, 14? Okay, it's getting pretty big, right? 28. And finally, 56, and that would cost you a rather whopping total. By the way, you can actually get this a bit cheaper if you prepay, and you basically tie yourself into a contract. The same would also be said for this as well. So, for example, if we go to this, you can see how ridiculously expensive you could start making this stuff. But let's just assume you wanted one. You will notice there is a slight discrepancy between the two prices. That's because of... not because of the specifications, if you look at that. But the actual purpose of the difference in price is actually because of the Windows licensing fee. So, all that's basically happening here is that a ridiculously powerful server, or bank of servers, because Windows virtual machines can be spread over numerous systems, depending, especially if there's a lot of redundancy. We'll talk about that in a moment. And the basic premise here is that those specifications, shall I say, you have a slice. So in other words, you could choose what slice of that hardware that you want. Now, we know that Microsoft are going to be using virtual machines for the Xbox One, and they're going to allocate you a certain amount of GPU computational power, which is 3 times what is in the Xbox One, as well as cloud storage. Now, let's talk for a moment about that. I know we're kind of going into the deep end and we're talking a lot about this. I will be showing you guys how it works in just a moment. I want to give you a brief overview first. So let's click on cloud services. You can see that let's go to full calculator. So there are various applications here. You can do mobile services, you can do bandwidth, which allows you to change, or should I say send the bandwidth all around the web. You've of course got things such as a cloud-based distribution as well. So what in the balls is a CDN, or cloud-based distribution? That one's a little bit more interesting to explain. It's actually fairly simple though. A CDN basically has multiple mirrors of your data. That would be static data. So that would be text, if it's static, it would be images, it would be videos, it would be audio, that type of thing. And it will be mirrored on multiple locations around the world. So for example, it could be in Asia, it could be in, say, Australia, it could be in the UK, it could be in a couple of locations in larger countries such as the United States, for example, East, West Coast, maybe even, the middle areas as well. So for example, there could be one server in Texas, there could be one in, say, California, one in New York. I'm just, of course, throwing out a couple of locations here. And so the basic premise is that because the data is mirrored over multiple different servers, if you were to, for example, access a website that uses a CDN, and let's say you were to live in Australia, just for example, and I obviously live in the UK, so let's assume that I access that same website, and let's say one of our buddies, we'll call him Tom, and he lives in the United States, just for example. Well, each of us could be accessing that website. However, the CDN, the static content, may well be served from different servers. So in other words, I may get it from, say, a location closest to me, which, for example, could be London. You could get it from, say, Sydney, Australia, and he could get it from, say, New York, just as a pure example. And that obviously not only helps to reduce latency, but it also helps to add in a little bit of geo redundancy as well. The other purpose of all of this is cloud storage. Now, we're going to get into that in just a moment. Storage is basically pretty simple. You pretty much just have a certain amount of storage on the cloud. So let's actually discuss, or should I say show off, just how this works. So, as I said, there are multiple different services. Now, let's say we would click on compute. You could see that you can indeed select many different ones. For example, we can click on a cloud service and then custom create, and that will pop this up. Or, for example, we could click on new. We could click on, let's say, compute. And we could click on, say, virtual machine. And we could, for example, click on create from a gallery. Now, this will basically allow us to select multiple different operating systems, including Linux, for example, Ubuntu, SUSE, OpenSUSE, various Visual Studios, servers if you want, SQL Server, SharePoint, and so forth. Or you can actually set up your own one as well. So the basic premise here is that you can select your region of the location as well. And then you would, for example, select that one, you would click OK, and then you would just keep going forward. Now, obviously, right here, you can actually select what level you want of specifications. So, and then obviously you can give it names and so on and so forth and so forth and so forth and so forth. So, yeah, now, I'm going to click on virtual machines, and you can see that we already have a couple set up already, and those are just doing their job. So yeah, anyway, we're going to also be taking a look at this through Amazon. Now, Amazon offer very similar services to that of, say, Azure, but they do it a little bit differently, so I'm just going to show you guys this as well. This is my own personal login, so it's going to be a bit of a bitch to navigate because it just so happens that one of the bars for recording is just over the actual user interface that I need to click. So I've got about 1 micropixel to click on. So if I derp around with my mouse going at the top, sorry. So what the hell is Amazon's offering? Well, theirs is known as AWS, or also known as Amazon Web Service. They offer computing as well as CDN and everything else. So I'm going to show you a little bit about this as well. It's a very, very, very similar to Azure. And if you're going to ask me which one's better, the answer is not really either. It really depends on your perspective. I don't have a login for Rackspace or Google to show you guys. So I'm not going to bother to show you every single thing because I will be here for a long time with this. It's actually got a lot of services, as it turns out, and these allow you to do various things, such as even compute media, so in other words, render media and so forth. So you can do quite a lot of stuff. So there's what's known as instances, spot instances, reserved instances. These are all EC2s, or Amazon Cloud Computing. I'm going to click on instance. And this is one that I was kind of derping around with just in my own spare time. And we're going to click on launch an instance. Now, we could either go with a classic wizard, we could go with quick setup, or the marketplace. I'm just going to go with classic wizard for no other reason than why the ball's not. And very similar to the previous option, you could see that indeed you can choose a variety of different operating systems. Now, once again, Amazon have their operating systems in the background, and you're basically just renting a section of this. So you can actually go for community AMIs, which are a selection of AMIs, or Amazon Machine Images, that users have just created. It'll take a moment to load this, so I'm probably not going to actually bother to wait. It's pretty much the same thing. There will just be various custom versions of these same AMIs that they've allowed them to use. Anyway, you could see that they've all got their little nuances. So, for example, the amount of memory that's advised, the amount of data that's required and so on and so forth. So for example, root boot device. So pretty obvious what that means. So let's, for example, assume that one wants to create this. Now all they're wondering in case about Star is I'm on the free tier, or free tier eligible, because for the first year you get 1 year free, which is kind of cool. So I'm just going to select this and we can create an instance details. I'm just going to choose, you can see right there that there are, you know, a bucket load. You can actually get over 117 gigs with a ridiculous amount of CPU cores and computing units. So I'm just going to click on this, which is free. Why not? That's why I say you could choose a different availability zones, or you could even spot request an instance. I'm not going to bother to do that. I'm just going to say that's fine, and I'll go for that. I'm going to not have a key pair because I don't really need it. And so, yep, that's cool. You can see that. Click on OK. So it's going to ask me for a key pair. I'm going to just ignore that, I think, and choose proceed without a key pair. It'll warn me. I don't need that. All that is for security purposes. I have no intention of using this. It will be deleted moments after I've created this tutorial. So just for the purposes of this, I just want to show you guys just how quickly this is done. And you see that I've got some various bits and bobs there that I've already messed around with or deleted. So I'm just going to click on this. And you can see that we have some data there. Once again, all this will be deleted anyway, so I'm not really bothering to read it too much. And then we click on launch and it will work for a few seconds. And you can also do this if you so wish. I'm just going to say nope. Like, while that's initializing, because it will take a moment, we can have a look at some other goodies. I'm going to show you guys CloudFront, and also show you guys the contents as well. So CloudFront is their CDN. So this allows you to set various CDNs up, and you can set CNAMEs and stuff. I'm not going to bother to mention all that stuff. It's not really imperative for the purposes of this. But suffice to say, you can choose a prettier name rather than this domain name right here. You can also set up various other bits and pieces, including databases and RDS and storage and content networks. Glacier, for example, allows you to move huge amounts of data. And finally, S3, which is a storage account, he says finally. The storage account for S3 basically allows you to hold multiple data units. As a slight aside, I'm not sure if you guys know this, but as it turns out, S3 actually powers Dropbox. And so when you're actually signing up to Dropbox, you're actually getting these S3 buckets. You can actually click inside this. I don't know if there's going to be anything in now. You can see some content already is in there. So yeah. So if I were to start bothering to put tons of stuff in, you could see it all start mounting in. It'll basically start, you can use that for multiple things, including storage of websites, or even sending files to various people as well. So I'm going to click back on EC2, and we'll click on running instances, because now we've actually created one, and you can see that it is now running and so forth. And once again, you've all got all this crap that you can look at, or we can even do stuff like right click, and we could stop, terminate, start, whatever. I'm just going to, actually, we can reboot it, but I actually misclicked there, as you probably guess. I'm going to click on terminate instance, and it will eventually delete that instance. So, I think you get an idea of how this service starts working for this. And the basic premise, of course, as you are probably aware, Microsoft basically allow free time, or the resources, or free other Xbox Ones in the cloud. And that's all this basically is. They are basically giving you a machine, or should I say the resources of a machine that has 3 times that of the Xbox One. And that's all it is. It's a virtual machine. It is not a proper server. It is a VM. And that has numerous benefits, including the fact that for them it's a lot cheaper because, well, the instance only has to load while your machine starts up, for example. So it's not wasting computational power. So as I said, it has numerous benefits, but also has pretty powerful implications as well. So the question is, what exactly is going on the desktop level? For example, if we were to peek at this, how does it work? Well, I'm going to show you guys a version of just how this works in a second, and that's going to be basically using VirtualBox along with an operating system inside my own operating system. Exciting stuff. Okay, so now those of you who are eagle-eyed will notice that we are actually on a Windows desktop. I can assure you it is a Windows desktop. And we have running a VirtualBox with SUSE, the Linux operating system, being hosted. Now, Windows is acting as the host operating system. This is very similar to what is actually happening on Azure, or, and for that matter, of course, Amazon. The basic premise here is that this operating system has been allocated certain levels of resources from my main system. I've actually allocated this 1 GB of RAM, and I'll show you guys that in a moment. I'm just going to close this out just to show you this is a fully functional, fully fledged operating system, and you could do whatever the balls you want with this. So for example, we can type on this, and of course it will load somewhat sluggishly because I've allocated fairly limited resources to this for the purposes of smooth operations, shall we say, and also that time is woefully wrong. And what we can do then, of course, is simply type, and we can type in stuff like anyway, and then we could just close that out and do whatever, and we can save it, do whatever. Now, the purpose I'm showing you this is pretty much how Azure treats, or Amazon treats, your operating system. You are basically using this. Imagine that you have the resources of this operating system, and you can actually remote desktop to it, or you could, for example, use PuTTY if you were using a Linux machine, which obviously is command line and so forth. And this is basically what's happening in the background with your Xbox One. In other words, the Xbox One will be allocated a certain level of resources, and that's pretty much it. In Xbox One's case, it can be slightly different. It could be proper servers that's running in the background. It could be data. It can be a multitude of different things, which is one of the reasons that I've showed you guys the CDN, the storage account, as well as cloud computing, or shall I say the VMs. Cloud computing is one of those things that sounds really mystical and awesome, but in reality it's actually fairly simple, as I'm sure you guys are starting to understand now. Now, the in-depth intricacies are actually a little bit more complicated, but we'll talk about those in probably another video, because I'll show you guys how to actually set some of this stuff up yourselves, and you can, play around with it to your heart's content, which would be pretty cool. I do want to be focusing a lot more on PC stuff recently, because I've been kind of doing less than what I should be. Anyway, I'm going to show you guys just how this works. So we can click on this, and this is called Oracle VM. Now, I'm just using this because it's free, and obviously haven't really bothered to set this up too well. It's just very, very, very basic configuration on one of my machines. So you can see that we can indeed create another operating system on this, and we can actually select multiple different types. Do you remember that? Does that sound familiar? Okay, you can actually run Mac OS as well on this, which is a bit naughty, but okay. So let's assume, for example, we wanted to run like Linux, and then you've got a multitude of different operating systems, both 64 and 32-bit. Of course, this all depends on what your processor is. So let's just assume that we wanted to set up another SUSE box, just for example. Actually, you know what? Let's not do that. Let's just alter the configuration we've already got. It'd be a lot easier. So to do that, we could just simply click on Settings. Very complicated stuff, as I'm sure you guys will agree. It will quickly calculate what, figure out what settings we've got. So we're just going to have to give it just but a moment. There's not much we can do. It's taking an inordinately longer amount of time than what it should be, however. Why you take so long? Ah, there we go. Starting to actually do something now. And it just got a bit confused for a moment, bless it. So we can actually do stuff like shared folders in USB. Shared folders are pretty obvious, and you can actually read it there. Basically, it allows you to set certain folders that multiple operating systems can use and so forth. Display allows you to select various video memory amounts. There's nowhere near as much as what I've got, of course. These are all default settings for the VM. I've just left the default because of, why the hell not, really. I'm not really doing anything particularly taxing, it's just for the purposes of fun. That will, of course, make this a bit slower, but still. So you could actually select storage, and we can actually mount multiple ISOs here if we so wish as well, or even multiple virtual disks. Okay, so VDIs, virtual disk images, and we can do stuff like select different audios and everything else. So under General, we can actually see just how actually no, it's System. I'm sorry. We can actually see just how I've set this up. So I've allocated it 1 gig of RAM. You can actually select what boot audio and stuff you want the devices, and so on. And I've located it 1 CPU, and so on as well. And you can actually choose different acceleration levels. And that's all this is. So imagine in this case, this system is the operating system. This is one of the reasons that on Azure you can quite happily select different levels of what's the word I'm looking for? Resources for your virtual machine. So for example, I'm going to actually shut down this virtual machine. I'm just going to do that by clicking off on here, and it's just going to ask what do I want to do. I'm just going to choose power down machine, which isn't really good for it, but whatever. And I'm going to click on settings. And I was going to show you guys what we can do. So I'm going to wait the 20 seconds so you guys can't do anything about that. There we go. It's a little bit snappier since it's not running, so it's not conflicting with anything. And we can go ahead and we can, nudge those up a little bit if we so desire. We can enable those and those. Non-optimal settings detected. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, okay. It's for Windows only. Remote display system. We'll tell it, you know what? You can have a bit more memory, my friend. You can have 1.3 odd. I don't know why. I'm sure someone's twitching at that number. And then we can simply click on Start, and it will start the operating system go away message. You're not wanted. You're not loved. And it will boot the operating system accordingly. And so, oops, I actually forgot I have... Okay, we can actually boot from the hard disk. Okay, cool. Sorry, I forgot I still have the SUSE image mounted, which, is pretty cool. And then, obviously, it will just load the operating system. So it's all fairly simple stuff. I don't really think that there's that much else to show you guys, really, regarding this. Are you booting, or are you going to whine because of something completely random? Oh, there we go. Okay, it is working. Oh, don't just go away. There we go. Okay, and obviously it's just booting and doing all of its things that normally you would expect. And so it's pretty cool. I really, 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 really hate that. I'm sure there's a way to globally turn that off, but I've just completely forgotten how offhand. And that's pretty much it. So you can actually use this for a multitude of different operating systems, and it allows you to basically access the resources. And this is pretty much all that's going on these virtual servers that Azure are using. And more to the point, it's also pretty much what's going on with the Xbox One and everything else as a whole. So it's pretty simple stuff, really. There's not anything particularly complicated or amazing behind this. It's fairly simplistic, but it's pretty awesome at the same time. So this gives you a very brief overview of how this stuff works. There is a lot more to it, but for now, I think that'll do. So hopefully you've learned something. And now just, see, it's back up and running. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Linux. I'm not particularly familiar with it. Sorry, that would be the window. That would be Linux starting up, just to annoy me. You gotta love how it just times that, right? Anyway, sorry guys. and we could just do whatever we want. So for example, we could browse the web or whatever, and we could do file manager. Actually, there is something else I wanted to show you guys. I'll show you guys just how that works in regards to my own Windows files. So if I click on here, you can see that I am indeed on a very, very, very small portion of my hard drive. So I'm on a list drive. I've installed the virtual directory to, the virtual operating system to this drive. And then if I double click on this, you can see that these are the virtual machine settings and various other bits and bobs, including the logs if you so wish to peruse them because you're curious about why something's falling over. And this is the VDI, and the VDI is basically the machine image, which of course all the settings are allocated to. So if I just minimize that, you can see that you've got everything right there. So you can do whatever the heck you want with that. It's pretty cool stuff, and this gives you an idea of just how this stuff functions. It's fairly cool, fairly simplistic, but I think you get an idea. Now, what I will be doing over the next video, when I don't actually know if I've got web access, I can't remember if I enabled the controller for this, but let's just assume I did and try it out. Oh, we do, okay. Oh, and Microsoft ironically pop up first, so pretty cool. And that's pretty much all there is to it. And you can do stuff like go to steampowered.com and we can check out the latest deals. So yeah, it's pretty cool stuff. This is what it's like right for me this second. Pretty cool deals, actually. I do love Steam. Anyway, enough of my perusing. As I was saying, so yeah, that's pretty much all there is to it. The next video will be a lot more in-depth in terms of networking. We're going to be showing off how it's distributed over the cloud. We're going to be showing off how to set up CDNs, and we're going to be showing off bins, and we're going to be showing off storage and so forth as well. We touched upon it in this video, but I wanted to primarily focus on how the virtual machines are set up and what it actually really is. Obviously, I only touched upon a lot of this stuff. Some of it I haven't really gone into too deeply, but for some people, they have absolutely no idea what a virtual machine is. They have no idea what cloud computing is, and so I just wanted to put this video out, just to give you an idea or a sense of the basic premise of it. Anyway, in case you guys are wondering, I do have a pretty cool background as well. Yeah, check that out. Awesome, right? Anyway, so yeah, that's about all there is to it. Hopefully you found the video somewhat helpful. As I said, there is going to be a hell of a lot more tech stuff coming over the next couple of weeks. Amata, who usually helps me edit videos, she's not actually here right now. She's on a trip, which doesn't really make things great, because that means I've got a hell of a lot more videos to edit. I'm actually having to record like double the amount of videos this weekend, so that's a bit of a tricky situation. Despite the fact that everyone's got their own respective systems, everyone lives in their own respective houses at RGT, it still was a bit of a pain in the butt. Anyway, hopefully you guys have enjoyed the video. Hopefully you found it helpful. If you have any more questions, or you have anything that you're curious about or want me to cover further and more in depth, because as I said, this is only being a taster of what really is underlined, and even this has been fairly lengthy actually, then your best bet would be to contact me via Facebook. So you could go ahead and you can check out facebook.com/redgamingtech. And you would be more than welcome to ask questions. As I said, there are several of us on the channel, so you're best to ask for me specifically, which would be either Paul or Crimson Rain, depending on which one you want to call me by. Regardless, hopefully you've enjoyed the video. I will hopefully see you around soon. Take care, my friends, and bye for now.